flesh, and the world, right? These are all things that wage war on our souls in one way or another. And as you guys know, we've been parked on number 2 for a little bit. This will be the last sermon for number 2. And it follows this kind of logical thinking in Romans chapter 8. You know, we've talked about what it means to be adopted into the family of God, right? How a child of God might carry themselves differently with owning that fact, with really embracing, wait, I'm a child of God. Changes the way you think. It changes the way you interact. It changes the way you approach setbacks even. It changes the way you might think about how God views you, right? Rather than somebody who's distant and cold, it's like, no, it's this loving parent that I have that's taking care of me, that wants the best for me. And as we're going to get into the world in a second, but Paul knows he's got to deal with something first in Romans chapter 8. Because right after he starts talking about you're adopted, your sons, your daughters, right? And this is awesome and this is incredible. He anticipates our counter argument almost. Where he's like, well, if I'm a son or daughter, why do I have to suffer? He just knows it's coming. He knows we're going to be like, wait. So this all sounds great, but then why do I suffer? Why do I have trials? Why do I have to go through things? And Paul is anticipating our argument, and so he's going to deal with it. And I hope today can serve as some sort of framing for suffering. I don't know that I don't know the answer for your specific brand of suffering, but I do believe that the Bible is able to frame it in a way that gives it so much meaning and purpose. And as we go, we're going to look in Romans chapter 8, verse 17. And I think that this is an important topic as we talk about our flesh, the sarx, because our sinful nature is often activated through suffering. It's hard to be righteous while navigating trials, right? It's hard to be righteous when everything seems to be going the wrong way. It's hard to be righteous when you're being mistreated, right? It's hard to be righteous when your boss is giving you a hard time. You know, it's hard to be righteous when your spouse is giving you a hard time. Like, it's hard to be righteous when actually something really traumatic happens, right? Man, there are some struggles that it's like you walking hand in hand with Jesus every single minute, every single second. And if I let go for 1 second, I don't know what's going to happen. And Paul and Jesus, the Bible, it can appreciate that reality that we face, that humanity that we face on this side of heaven. And you think for yourself, like when you're going through challenging times, what part of your sinful nature gets activated? How do you cope when you're facing trials? You know, some people withdraw and isolate, some attack, some look for people to blame. So I go through a whole cycle when Satan is. So I start, first of all, I'm like, what is this feeling? Something's wrong. Okay, gotta blame someone. So let's start with you, idiot, like talking to myself, right? Like, let's start with you, Pat. What are you doing? Figure it out. What do you got going wrong? What are you doing wrong that's creating this kind of inner turmoil? Okay, I found this, and this. I'm starting to deal with it, still feel this. So it's you, and it's maybe you. And it's mainly, my poor wife, I'm like, babe, like, oh, wait, I just need a little more encouragement, and it's like, I'm actually processing inner turmoil. And she's just going to be given to what probably for her feels like a black hole. Like everything she gives, just like it doesn't matter. Because that's not really addressing the root issue for me, which has to do with just bearing suffering. Just how do I bear suffering? How do I carry suffering? Do I let other people carry it? Do I talk to other people about it? Do I share? Do I pray about it? Right? Do I really pray about it and really pour out my heart? Or do I try to have nice prayers that God is like, good job, kiddo? Or am I real? Am I like David in the Psalms? Like he actually says in the Psalms, God, like, man, I want you to smash their teeth in their mouths. Okay, like that's real. right? That's somebody experiencing humanity, right? And yet our prayers, and maybe he'll bless me if I execute the prayer well. No, he wants you to worship him in spirit and in truth. Tell the truth, right? Be honest and real and authentic with God as you pray to him. So we're going to read in Romans chapter 8, verse 17 through 18. So this is Paul anticipating our argument. He says, now if we are children, then we are heirs. So this is awesome. He's like, you guys are feeling great. You're heirs with God. Good stuff. Heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. Amen. But then people say, well, what about suffering, man? How are we really heirs? How is this great if we suffer? If indeed we share in his sufferings, in order that we may also share in his glory. Hold up. Wait. Sonship, daughtership comes with suffering? No. Well, Paul could say, but did you see the glory part? Did you catch that part too? You saw the suffering. Did you catch the glory part in that? In verse 18, it says, imagine this in a discipling kind of relationship. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Triggered, Paul. I don't know if you went through your sensitivity training here, man. Like, you missed that. You missed that class. Because he says, I consider that our present suffering is not worth comparing. Feels a little invalidating, but he doesn't leave it there, okay? Keeps going, right? It's not the end of the D time, right? So, he's helping us to shift our focus, right? Shift our focus. I don't know that his interest in saying that suffering is not, I don't think he's making the case that suffering doesn't hurt and it's not real. I think what he's trying to do is magnify the opposite of suffering, to help us to understand and to focus on the greatness of the glory in comparison to the suffering. But I don't know about you, but when I'm suffering, my suffering is magnified. And it's all I can think about. I'm just thinking about suffering. And then you get, on top of suffering, depressed and anxious, and you try to take control. Right? So here's Paul, like, I can't go there. Because by the end of the conversation, I'll have you convinced it's really that bad. If you give me enough time, you'll be like, man, you might be right, man. All these people really are hurting you, dude. Like, it's like, no, Paul's like, we're not going to go there. We're going to talk about God. Fair enough. It's painful. Let's take a second here. Let's talk about God. And that you get to be an heir with God and co-heir with Christ. So there's some connection in the kingdom of God that the more suffering equals more glory. One of the hardest passages to follow is James chapter 1, right? Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. I would say forgiving 77 times 7 times, so all the time. Basically, that's up there. That's a top challenging passage to follow, like in practical terms. It's easy to read, hard to follow. The second one is consider, in my opinion, for me, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. What are you talking about? Invalidating, once again, triggered. I'm triggered, man. So they get something that maybe we don't quite get yet. They understand something a little bit deeper than we understand it, that there's some connection between suffering and glory. And it's profound, and they're intertwined, and they're two sides of the same coin. The same way love cannot exist in a vacuum, nor can glory exist in a vacuum, which necessitates suffering. So as God saw the multiverse of all the infinite realities that we could have lived in, this is the best possible outcome. And that takes faith to believe that, especially when there's suffering. That he saw all of it, all of the possibilities, and he said, this right here, what these scriptures say, is the best possible circumstances for there to be free will, for there to be love, for there to be people making choices, for people to choose to love me. All of these ingredients are necessary, and this is the best outcome possible. And that's the gospel. It's the story of God sharing with us the best outcome on every and any timeline that could ever be, because he saw it all. So it could have been infinitely worse, basically, than it is right now. And we're going to unpack a little bit more of this in a sec, like how exactly do these things connect? But I want to invite Isaiah and Fiorella on stage. They're in our campus ministry. And they recently came from an international campus ministry conference, and they had an experience after the conference ended that they'll share with you, but I think their story serves as a microcosm, so a small way where you could see the interplay of suffering and glory. So they're going to share.
Hello, church. Hi, Mom. So, okay. Whew. This past week has been a week, okay? The campus ministry went to ICMC, so if you don't know what that is, that's International Campus Ministry Conference. Anyways, the theme was glory, and I think this weekend really showed me and Isaiah and Kevin just, okay, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about it now, and I'm just like, I don't even want to get into it, but just how amazing it is to really go through the journey of finding glory, and that includes trials, tribulations, and suffering, unfortunately.
So, like she said, the last week was ICMC. Am I loud? I don't know. So last week was ICMC, which for me, it landed on my birthday. Yeah, y'all think that would be a great thing, right? Problem is, my birthday week is the same week my father passed away. Yeah, that's a real nail dropper. So with that week, the emotions are supposed to be high, but they're really low. Like, I can't really explain how I feel that week. It's a lot of emotions. And the way I used to cope with that wasn't exactly the best. I would still go to car takeovers. For those of you that don't know what it is, pretty much drag racing. Oh, okay. So yeah, it wasn't exactly the best. But recently, as I got closer to God, He showed me new ways to cope. Before, I would steal for the thrill of it. Now, if I want a thrill, I'll share my faith with someone that I don't know, like we did at ICMC. Okay, thank you. Before, in order to get a sense of community, I would go to car takeovers and things like that because there's a lot of people there, a lot of trust there. But now, to get a sense of community, I go to breakout rooms, D groups, quiet times, group up with my brothers and sisters of Christ. And finding God, He's allowed me and showed me different ways to cope and ways that won't self-destruct myself.
So I didn't want to go to ICMC, like, at all. I thought it was a waste of my money, my parents' money. I thought that I wasn't going to get anything out of it. I was just like, there's a cheaper one in the fall. Like, why would I go to this one? Are you kidding me? But I got a little bit of a push from a sister to go, and I went along with it reluctantly. And I kind of just filled in my time with fellowship and lessons and D groups and more Bible talks of things where I was like, I could watch a video about this at home, but until Sunday, where I had been, I feel, spiritually confronted, not even by a person, by literally just me and God alone, about my convictions. And I just felt like I had been left spiritually beaten. I left Sunday, I literally left the sermon, I couldn't handle it, and when I felt like I was at my lowest, I thought to myself, wow, God, is this it? I really wasted my money for what? I really wasted my time for what? I don't like flying. And, God heard me because He delayed my flight. So, and He really thought to Himself, oh, okay, so you want more? Here. And I'm kidding. But yeah, He really showed me, that there's more to the story. When flights started getting canceled and delayed, chaos ensued, everyone was going crazy, ministers were trying to fix things, and, parents were stressed. And I cried, like a little bit, just like a little. And everyone was stressed and uncomfortable, but they were all coping in their own ways. And I got to witness that as someone who, was kind of just watching everything. Kevin, who I won't go into that much because he's not here to defend himself, but trust when he comes back, he will be dealt with. No, I'm kidding. He was taking control over things, you know, really trying to be a good leader, but at sometimes it became like a bit excessive. Isaiah was a bit, where are you? Oh, okay. He was a bit too casual, you know, a little like, oh, it's gonna be all right, you know, let's party, let's hang out. Every time, like, his mom texted in the group chat, like, oh, like, what's happening? He always sent the same gif of, like, a Pokemon dancing and, like, just didn't answer any questions. And he just was, like, having fun, you know? And, like, if you think that group chat was crazy, imagine sitting right next to him while Kevin's freaking out and I'm crying, and he's just like, oh, yeah, like... Anyways, I'm sorry. Anyways, so then I was like, you know, spiritually in my head, so I wasn't really there. But that reminded me of 1 Corinthians 12:26. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. And that was so true on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. We were stuck in North Carolina together, you know, which sucked. But every part suffered, you know, when we didn't know if Isaiah and Kevin had a place to stay for a night. Pat was on the phone, like, he suffered with us. But also with that, we bonded. And I really got to see God's perspective and that he's in control, and how much our church truly loves us, and how much our campus ministry is just, you know, small but mighty. Like, we're awesome. And I didn't really appreciate that until this very moment as much as I do now. But what's ironic is our conference is actually on a mountain, kind of at the bottom, but not really. And what's funny is the theme was glory, but I didn't really see God's glory until I was in the trials and tribulations of the valley. So that was something I really had to, you know, accept.
All right. So, like Fee said, this is like a body, it's a community. This is a family. The church is a family, and it's a body family. And it got me thinking of Corinthians 12:12. Just as a body, though one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so is with Christ. So in this little group that we had, me, Fee, and Kevin, we were a mini church. We had our body. Kevin was the brains. He talked to a lot of the managers, figured out a lot of the logical problems for us. Me, they said it's not me. I was the heart. I made sure we had low blood pressure. It wasn't that funny. But I was the heart. I made sure we had low blood pressure. I kept, you know what I'm saying? I kept the vibes low, vibes high, but stress low. And the heart and brain can't coexist without the, what is it again? What were you?
Central nervous.
The central nervous system, which was Fiorella. Fee really made sure that me and Kevin didn't rip each other's heads off, mostly Kevin, because I was stressing him out. But then, along with us, God really made a way for us. There were multiple ways that God came through for us in this journey. The first one I'm gonna start with is our hotel. Our hotel was a 21 and over hotel, and Kevin was the oldest of us at 20. But the lady saw our struggle, and she had grace on us to let us stay for just that night, which is all we needed. Now, this hotel also offered breakfast, which is great, because I'm not gonna speak for Kevin, but I'll speak for myself. I am a broke college student. I could not afford that breakfast. So for them to offer the free breakfast really helped us in our trip. Another thing, like I said before, was the community, the family that we have here. Pat, our minister right here, did not hesitate to jump in to help me, Fee, and Kevin when we needed the most. Me, Fee, and Kevin stuck by each other throughout the whole time, and we made sure that we were okay. So, and the biggest thing that God did for us, the biggest thing, was that we were stuck on this mountain. It was $300 of Uber. We could not get off of this mountain. And a bus that shows up once a year for 30 minutes showed up and offered us a free ride. And this is the hardest week, one of the hardest weeks of my life. My father passed away the same week as my birthday week. And so I was questioning God. But God showed me that my trust should not be misplaced. I had trust in him, and he got me that bus. He got me out of my struggles. He got me out of my trials, and he brought me to the glory. One second, y'all bear with me. So, out of all the trials that we faced, out of all the valleys that we were in, out of all the times my mom was arguing with me to get out of that state, that really showed us the connection with each other and God. That really brought us closer to God. God knew I needed those extra 2 days, and God provided for me each of those days. Yeah. That's your phone.
I mean, he described it perfectly, in his own way. Of course, like I said, didn't like being there, but more importantly, I didn't like the difficulty that was going on while it was happening. But until after did I really realize that God had put everything in place for us. If these things didn't happen to us, if we didn't think like, oh, I don't know where I'm gonna sleep tonight, that's like kind of, I don't like that. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm on a mountain. We wouldn't have experienced all these spiritual gifts and just revelations and new perspectives that God really wanted us to see the true glory of God. And now I'm so thankful that it happened. Someone who had never flown alone before. I'm so thankful that I was stressed, so thankful that I was alone, because I found a way back, So that was, with these amazing gifts that God gives us, he still gives it to us in the most glorious of times and even the most difficult, awful, sad, annoying times as well. And we have to appreciate both. Thanks.
Man, they're inspiring. What an adventure. That's one of those going down in history memories right there, It was the gifts or GIFs, the Pokemon thing. Christine, I share your pain with that as a parent wanting to get some information and just getting Pokemon gifts. So, yeah, that's crazy. But hey, he was trying to lower blood pressure, right? That was what he was doing. Okay, it wasn't the central nervous system. So as so I hope you guys can see, it's through the suffering sometimes that you see God the clearest. There's some glory in suffering. There's things that you're not able to see otherwise. Does that mean we like it? Absolutely not. It is uncomfortable, right? But it's almost like God in true to form, upside down kingdom, the greater the suffering, the greater the glory. And if we're going to turn to Romans chapter 8, 35 through 39, and I'm going to read beyond this verse, but that's going to be a focal point for us. It says, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? As it is written, for your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." Amen. Paul lists a lot of things here that make us go, why me? Right? And because he's anticipating, he knows how we think, because he is one. He's thought it. He's wrestled with it himself, right? And he's bringing it up. He says, here are some trials that might cause us to ask, why me? And reading definitions, this is kind of what he's getting at, right? He says trouble. This is talking about pressure, this feeling of no options, like I'm hemmed in. I have no choices right now. He talks about hardship. This is calamity, extreme affliction. He talks about persecution. It's the idea of being hunted that's behind this. Like you're being hunted. Someone is out to get you. They have their bullseye on you, and they're just going to pursue you. There's the famine. Now, for us, I don't know your relationship with this word. Hopefully it's not a strong connection, but in ancient Middle Eastern times, this is traumatic. You're watching loved ones pass away. You're potentially watching kids pass away. There's no food. People are dying of starvation. He's saying even in this case, right? That is a reason to ask why. It is a good reason to ask why. He's saying this can't separate us from the love of God. This is hard. This is really hard to hear. He says, nakedness. This is this idea of loss, shame, humiliation, danger, uncertainty. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know where the next hit is coming from. Also the sword, which is a reference to the Roman sword, beheading, martyrdom. Even when you're killed, it's not evidence of God not loving you. What? You know? How? Like, this is hard. Especially when you're in any kind of trial. You know, it feels at times insufficient because it doesn't feel like love. It doesn't feel like love to many of us, right? He goes on to talk about, you know, in case that didn't cover it, height and depth. Like think of tall mountains, tall buildings, and deep oceans. You ever been? One of my biggest fears is being stranded in an ocean. Oceans are terrifying for me. I'm like, I have no idea what's under there. At least in the sky, you can see what's going on around you, right? You got angels or demons. I don't know why an angel would want to try to separate you from the love of God, but apparently, even they can't. No celestial being can separate us from the love that God has for us. Present or future. How many of us dwell in one of those places? Like, we make a home, we camp out, we say, I'm going to make camp in the past with my regrets and all these other things, or I'm going to make camp in the future with all my anxieties and worries, right? And he's saying that even as you're living there, you're still not separated from God's love. You're not separated from God's love. And then nothing created. And this is a reference to authority and anything else. I mean, it's kind of relevant. You know, established authority, right? Government, right? Politics. I mean, he's saying that even in this case, in the chaos of it all, and mind you, at this time, in the book of Romans, the Jews had just returned from exile. So they had been legally persecuted, okay? And they're coming back from this exile, and in about 30 years from this letter, there's about to be like a mass martyrdom, a killing of Christians. You know, this was the society that they were seeing, and you see what Paul's doing? He's saying, like, this isn't how you evaluate whether or not God loves you. It's not based on these things happening physically and relationally and emotionally. And I would understand if you feel right now like, well, why would I? So like, I want the other kind of love, though. You know, it does feel at times insufficient, but we're getting to why I think we can digest it, and it can be a cure and a salvation to us. Because so much suffering that is caused is from our own carrying of our suffering, right? In the ways that we cope with our trials, it often results in suffering to others. So if we can learn to carry suffering with Christ, you know, if we can really learn how to carry suffering well, and some of you are very familiar with that, and I look up to you and I say, look, I need to learn from how you've done it. Because I hear it I can hear it. You're dealing with stuff that I'm not dealing with, right? And teach me. Teach me how you've learned to carry suffering. Teach me how you've, got stronger in your legs and how you've gone to God and depended on God in deeper ways than I don't even know yet. Right? Some of you guys are here and you've carried suffering in ways that, I will never understand. And I want to learn from you. You've gone before me in what you've dealt with. You've gone before the person to the left or to the right of you, and they're going to need the gift that you learned from your suffering. They're going to need that so you can use it to minister to them. And that's why we can come out of the other side. It's to God's glory to come out the other side. And I don't know what will ever be the same, depending on the level of it. But I know that you will be able to use it to minister in a way that no one else can. In a way that makes you truly unique, special, one of a kind. And sometimes that gift only comes through pain. And so we say to God, I want to be strong. But we don't want to face trials that make us strong. right? God, I want to be courageous, but I don't want to feel fear that I have to overcome. God, I want to be empathetic, but I don't want to actually experience suffering myself. How do you get there then? Like, it's a part of here. Now, thank God here doesn't last forever, all right? It does not last forever. And this is where we could be more than conquerors when we can frame our suffering differently. I'm not saying it's gone. I'm not saying you won't feel it ever again. It's gonna be a battle. It's gonna be a wrestle. But we get a frame. We get a hope. And it's not maybe heaven is real. It's not maybe Jesus is returning. It is 100% certain that Jesus is returning. Heaven is real. Your hope is assured. The hope that you have is assured. Don't give up. Don't let your sinful nature take over when you're experiencing suffering. Don't do what I do and like look around like maybe it was you and maybe it was you. And no, like this is the human condition. Don't be surprised. He told us it would happen. There's no promise in the Bible that says you won't suffer in this temporal dwelling. In fact, it assures us of the opposite. But yet when it's happening, we feel like, God, this is so personal. This is so personal. Why me? Why me? Why not them? Why not them? I've done XYZ things. Why has it got to be me? What did I do that was so wrong that you had to do me like this, right? Like that this is what happened. And there's no realer human emotion than that right there. Like that is you going to God with 100% authenticity. Talking to God about that. I had a brother I was sharing some of my past stuff with and how it still kind of messes me up today. And as I was sharing it with him, I was like, man, I was just like, sometimes it's like, why? You know, like, why, God, you know? And then he stops. It was like it was one of those moments where you're just like, whoa. He asked, well, have you asked them? Like, he didn't try to say God didn't do it. He didn't try to say, well, he was just like, you say why God to me. He didn't say it like that, but he was like, have you asked him? And I realized I didn't ask God why it happened. I never did. I've been too scared to. Because I might not like the answer. You know? Or I might be like, you deserve it, man. That's what Satan would tell me. Right? It's your fault. You had it coming. And I know that that's not God. Yet I am terrified to ask him why. I will break down crying if I was to ask God why. And there's just a part of me that's like, I would rather hold on to this feeling of I deserved it, because at least that makes more sense. Right? And so, but let's ask God why. We can, I'll encourage you, I'll pray for you, you pray for me, that we can have the courage to ask God why. And then wait and listen for what he has to say. I got a phone call recently from a number that I didn't recognize, and normally I get a lot of calls. Do you guys get a lot of calls from like telemarketers and spam? Is it crazier than ever? Okay, all right, yeah. It's wild out here. So anytime I see a call from someone, I typically don't pick it up, but for some reason, I just finished my quiet time. I was just like, so, you know, I'm in this like, whoa, what is the Holy Spirit doing kind of space, right? And then my phone rings, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna ignore it. And I'm like, nah, don't ignore it. So I pick it up, and it's this woman calls me, and I'm not gonna say their names, but she called me, and she was like, look, my sister's having a hard time right now. She came to your church one time, a long time ago, and she's just down on her luck. She has a degree, she's been employed, but she just can't find employment, and she's living in a hotel right now. And so I have to I have to do this dance of like making sure that, you know, you don't want to enable, right? But as she was talking and sharing with me, I was thinking to myself, well, I have to now travel this road. I'm not gonna not travel and see what happens next. Right? If we can help, Let's find a way to really help. So she's talking about the situation, and she said to me, my sister didn't even want me to call you. She's filled with shame. She's embarrassed about this, but I don't know what else to do. Me and my dad are up here, and we're trying to figure out a way to help her. I would like for her to come back to Virginia with me, but she really wants to stay there. And then she told me she had been estranged from the family for 15 years. And so I was like, okay, this is deep, right? So I text her sister. I said, just to kind of feel it out if she's comfortable with the phone call. And so we spoke on FaceTime, and the shame was so evident that what she was experiencing, she just felt a combination of why me, and I'm trying hard. Like, I'm really trying, and this is happening to me. And it's not fair. I'm talking to her, and she's telling me about this and about that, and then she starts to get into, or she's been reading the Bible, and she reached out to her sister and her dad because she had nowhere else to go, right? And in this conversation, I was sharing with her, I said, I don't know why, right? I can't give you some kind of definitive answer. But what I'm hearing, though, is that through this suffering, it has brought about the first time in 15 years that you've talked to your sister and your dad. And you're telling me you feel loved by them right now. And so I asked her, if it wasn't for the suffering, would you have contacted your sister? And she was like, I'm third generation Irish. I wouldn't. I'm too stubborn for that. That's what she said. And I'm like, I hear you. I got some of that stubbornness in my blood as well. And she stops, and she breaks down and starts crying. She starts to see this was all part of the plan. Like, I was really that stubborn for 15 years. And she had her reasons too. There's always two sides of a story, right? But now, then she told me, I made a choice. I'm going back to Virginia with my sister. Like, she allowed her sister, her big sister, to take care of her. She allowed her dad to take care of her. And that was what she didn't want to let happen. She didn't want to let someone else take care of her. And she finally let go of the shame and just surrendered. And I was like, this was an incredible moment. Like, this was amazing. And it only came through the pain. It only came through the suffering. And I agree that you can feel at times when you suffer like, I need to take revenge, or God, this is your fault. Like Mary and Martha, if you had been here, this wouldn't have happened, right? And so I love the Bible. It's like just humans after humans. Like, we're just it's real and it's honest. And we can feel like that. We feel like, I need some justice for the injustice. This is unfair, and I want to create fairness on my own terms. I need to do something about this. And I don't know if you ever feel this way, but it could feel like God is distant to your suffering and to your pain, that he's cold towards it, that maybe he doesn't really care. And then we say God, we can get really mad at God or other people. It can be misplaced at times. And I want to share something with you guys, that you got your justice already. You did. You got your justice. You were able to, we did take it out on God. Let that be the last of it, though. We did take it out on God. And so when we feel, why me, God? Why me? You're not alone. You're not alone in that. And when you ask it, where do you go? You're going to try to get an answer somewhere. Where do you go? Let's go to God with that question. This is what Jesus says on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why me? Jesus himself experienced exactly what you're experiencing. He also asked God the question, why me? And it was for us. It was for you. That's why. So we took it out on God. This is us taking it out on God. We already did it. Our sin did it. And he gladly did it for us. He said, this is part of the plan because you won't have anything left to take out on anyone else after this. And guess what? You're not even going to be guilty because I'm coming back from the dead. You weren't even successful in doing it. Right? We're free from the guilt. He took it. He took it all for us. It's by his wounds. You are healed. No revenge is no longer necessary. We did it already. We took it out on God. We took it out on him. And not only did we take it out on him, but he allowed for that to happen so that he could also relate to us. That he's asked his own father, that he's had a closer relationship with than you or me, like, why me? I don't see an answer. God's booming voice came multiple times in the scriptures. It didn't come right here. There was the temple tour. You can read into that if you want as an answer. But why me? Why me? He shared in our human experience. Every pain you feel, he experiences. By his wounds, we are healed. He also showed us the way to glory. If we're following in his footsteps, this is the way to glory. It's through suffering. Every time we experience suffering here on earth, it is like it's coming. Glory's coming. Feel that pain. It's all right to feel it. Let it remind you that it's coming. And as you get to the end of your life, it starts to happen more and more. And people are, different things are happening as people age and all of that. And it's like boom, boom, boom. Like glory's on its way. Every time we suffer, it's a reminder. It's coming. Glory's on its way. It's not going to be like this forever. It's not going to be what you feel will not last forever. It is the evidence that glory's coming. It's coming. And he loves you, and it doesn't change the fact he loves you. He loves you so much, he's like, I'm going to hold your hand and experience everything that you're feeling. So you will have no doubt that as I advocate for you to the Father, I am advocating knowing exactly what you're dealing with. Exactly the pain that you feel. This is what it means for us. In Romans 8:31-34, what then shall we say? And we're going to end with this. What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? He's saying, if Jesus was willing to die for you, if I sent my son to die for you, why would I stop giving to you right there? I'm not going to see it through? I'm going to keep giving. This should be evidence to you that I'm going to withhold nothing from you. I'm going to ensure your success. I'm going to keep you saved. I'm going to keep you spiritual. I'm going to keep reminding you of these promises. I'm never giving up on you. Even though you may give up on yourself or you might feel like others do, I will never give up on you. You are more than a conqueror. You're better than what you believe about yourself. You can do whatever you want. You got all these promises. Don't let Satan fool you into thinking suffering means that he doesn't love you. That's a lie. That is a lie. This is part of it. The suffering is a part of it. And when you can understand that, it doesn't make it not hurt, but you can lean into it a little bit more because it's bringing the redemption of our souls. It's bringing about a transformation within you that otherwise could not happen. And I don't know where you are on that journey right now. And it might not be exactly there, but I can assure you that there is glory in what you're facing. There is an incredible glory that awaits you, and hold on to that hope as an anchor for your soul. My prayer is that we can take this frame, instead of asking God, why me in terms of this suffering, that we can ask God, why me in terms of, you gave me this much? You did this much for me. You died on a cross for me and you gave me your inheritance. Why me? Thank you guys.
Wow, I'm just so very, very grateful for that message. That was incredible. It is not what I am naturally, the liking suffering, but I know that God's doing amazing things, and I'm